Hi, my name is Kelly Appell, and I've spent the past 10 years teaching at Ankeny Christian Academy, mostly in the upper elementary and junior high. I've recently transitioned to becoming a teacher assistant at Faith Baptist Bible College in their teacher education program. The title of my paper is The Effects of an Advisory Period on the Academic Achievement and Transition of Junior High Students. The difference between elementary school and junior high or middle school is very marked. The transition for students moving from a self-contained classroom with familiar students and just one or two teachers to a complete different setting of junior high with more peers, various teachers with different expectations, and new academic and social pressures is often difficult and filled with apprehension. According to the American Psychological Association, the first year of junior high often correlates with a considerable drop in student grades and increases the doubts and fears that students have. I decided to research this issue because I've directly observed the difficulties of students. First, with my own two children, they struggled when they hit junior high, and we weren't expecting that. Then also, when I changed teaching roles from mostly elementary to mostly junior high, I had students I had previously taught, and even though many of them had been confident and positive and academically strong in fourth grade, I noticed the first couple semesters of junior high, they struggled academically and emotionally. Let's look a little bit at the literature that goes along with this study. Any school transition can pose a difficulty for students, but the transition to the middle grades is unique because of the dramatic biological changes also occurring at this time. The physical changes of puberty have a substantial impact on cognitive, social, and emotional aspects of our youth. Andrews and Bishop describe a downward spiral that can happen during these years, marked by failure and even early exit from school. Academic regression is not the only danger lurking for students entering junior high, though. Student motivation and attitudes toward education show a tendency to decrease during this time, and both boys and girls show increased psychological distress. There are many fears of the unknown during this time, of more homework, difficulty with the material, getting lost, being the youngest in the building, maybe even just being late to school. Balfant mentions that the middle grades are crucial to the future success of students, and it's during this time that they either really launch towards success and achievement and attainment, or they begin to slide off track. The research into this issue really began in the 1960s when there became a call for an intermediate school that would meet the needs of this particular group of students. And it led to quite a few changes, trying to focus on mentor relationships between teachers and students, developing smaller communities of learners, and a curriculum that would be more active and personalized. The number of schools, specially designed for students from ages 11 to 15, dramatically increased from about 2,080 in 1970 to about 12,000 in 2001. In spite of these changes, though, academic, motivation, and self-esteem continued to decline. So many researchers began to recognize the need for transition programs, ones that would not just be a middle school, but would embrace a middle school concept, where they really focused more on the characteristics of successful transition programs, where teachers and administration became more sensitive to anxieties of our students, to focus on teamwork and providing ongoing support, more relationships with adults in the building, and again, differentiation and engaging learning experiences. As I began researching, I realized that the focus school seemed to fall into the middle of current research. The school has not jumped on the bandwagon of the middle school concept and started a new building, rather has retained a traditional junior high within their school and focused on small class sizes and a strong curriculum. Research is generally found about the transition to a separate middle school building, with its inherent difficulties, but little is said about junior high settings within small, private schools. Unlike students entering a separate middle school, most of the students in the focus school are able to keep the same peer relationships, and the majority of the school building is already familiar. Yet academic achievement and emotional experiences still seem to be negatively affected as students move from the elementary to the junior high setting. My purpose was to determine if the implementation of an advisory period for new junior high students would foster positive academic and emotional transition to junior high. Could the new 7th graders in the focus school avoid the usual decline in grades and confidence? I predicted that stable academic achievement and positive emotional transition could be accomplished in the focus school by implementing a daily advisory period with an assigned teacher who would strive to develop mentor relationships with students, assist students with organizational skills such as filling out their agendas every day, helping with homework, providing emotional and social support, and then also serve as a liaison with the other secondary teachers. Let's look a little bit at some of the methodology used in the study. I chose to use an A-B research design and then used a dependent samples t-test when I looked at the data. The independent variable in the study was the implementation of an advisory period. The dependent variables consisted of the evaluation of student grades and emotional transition inventories and interviews. There was no control group used in the study. We had one group that we used during the advisory period implementation and then evaluated them post-treatment. The participants in the study all came from Ankeny Christian Academy in Ankeny, Iowa, which is a small private religious school. It draws from 14 different school districts and 40 different churches. All students are housed in one building, K through 12. The entire 7th grade, consisting of 21 students, actually participated in the advisory period, but only 19 of them, a matched cohort, were evaluated in the results. The mean age of the participants was 13. They were almost evenly split when it came to gender. There were 89% who were Caucasian. Only 2 students have been served with 504 plans, and then there are 3 students in the class who were served for 1 period a day in a tag math class. Steps were taken to guard the validity and reliability of the study. Again, we tried to focus on a matched cohort, and only those 19 students who spent both years, 6th grade and 7th grade, as part of the advisory period were focused on for the results. I strove to provide consistency by having myself be the advisory teacher and seeing all students at the same time for the same amount of minutes and the same days per week. I provided anonymity for the survey respondents so that they could provide answers that would be reliable and accurate and truthful. Some of the materials used in the study were pre-surveys that focused on the perceived needs of the transitioning subjects, post-surveys that focused on the emotional aspects of the school year, and also was the advisory period beneficial. Grade comparison charts were used to collect scores from the 6th grade self-contained classroom and then scores from the next year from 7th grade. For the procedure, the study was conducted throughout both semesters of the 2015-2016 school year. A 9th-hour advisory period was instituted for 35 minutes, 4 days a week, Monday through Thursday. The participants were assigned as one group to myself because I had knowledge and experience of middle grade students, and I also wanted to be able to control for consistency to make sure each participant received the same treatment. During the advisory period, students had teacher guidance for organizational skills such as filling out homework agendas, gathering the materials needed to do their assignments, homework assistance on things that they did not understand, social and emotional support as issues arose between students or conflicts between students and teachers. And then also they were given advocating and consultative services as well. I recorded grades each quarter and then each semester and evaluated them throughout the year. Let's take a look at how some of the data was analyzed. I administered the surveys, the pre-surveys, 2 weeks before school started, and this allowed me to develop a list of fears and concerns that I could then develop a plan to address those fears throughout the advisory period. The post-surveys were kept to simple categories that just asked students to evaluate whether their transition to junior high was easier or more difficult than they had anticipated, and whether the advisory period was helpful or not. We compared grade scores with looking at class averages as well as individual grades, and then used a t-test to check for statistical significance. Let's look at some of the results, focusing on the academic achievement first. I believed that implementing an advisory period would positively affect student academic achievement as seen in either stable or increased grade scores. This hypothesis was confirmed. Instead of the usual decrease in grade scores experienced by many students entering junior high, the focus group's average grade scores from 7th grade showed an increase from what was earned in the self-contained 6th grade classroom. Figure 1 shows a graph of each participant's pre- and post-treatment grade scores. Individually, 12 students out of 19, or 63%, not only remained stable, but actually increased their grade scores. Out of the 7 who showed a decrease in grades, 4 showed only a decrease of less than half a percentage point, and 3 participants showed a decrease of just over 1 percentage point each. Continuing with the academic achievement, the calculated p-value was 0.003. Since p is less than 0.05, the results of the study were found to be statistically significant. Cohen's d was 0.797, indicating a medium to large effect size. The mean for academic achievement as a group pre-treatment was 88.72, with a standard deviation of 5.74. And the mean post-treatment was 90.11. The medium to a large effect size confirmed the research that students in the middle grades are more successful academically when adequate supports are put into place. You can see here a table just showing the pre-treatment and post-treatment data. The second aspect of the hypothesis that a positive emotional transition could be accomplished by implementing a daily advisory period was also confirmed. Of the 19 students who participated, 16 of them, or 84%, stated the transition to junior high was easier than they had anticipated it would be. 1 student responded that it was about what they had anticipated. Only 1 student responded that it was more difficult, and 1 student chose not to answer. 15 students rated the advisory period as very helpful. 4 students rated it as mostly helpful, and 1 as just a little helpful. All 19 7th grade participants stated they wanted this service to continue in 8th grade because they believed that the advisory period allowed them to transition to junior high more easily and with less stress than they had anticipated. There are some implications, limitations, and also further research to look at in this study. The research provided the author with insights and knowledge regarding the emotional needs of junior high students and how teachers can best meet these needs. This will enable me to collaborate and share strategies with the other secondary teachers at the Focus School to help students become more successful and confident. As a result of the positive outcome of the research, the Focus School determined to continue to provide the advisory program for students in both 7th and 8th grade. Another possible step would be to continue discussions and data collection about what the exact structure of the advisory program should be. Questions dealing with issues such as length of the advisory period, specific supports that will be provided, and qualifications of the advisory teacher should and will be looked at. Some of the limitations. One potential limitation to this research was the validity of the answers on the survey questions. Students, even though it was conducted anonymously, may have chosen not to reveal all of their fears and concerns about the school year. Another limiting factor relates to possible differences in grading policies between the secondary teachers and the 6th grade teacher. The researcher found it difficult to account for weighting of tests, homework grading policies, and grades possibly given for non-academic behaviors. An alternative interpretation of the study's findings could be that unaccounted for differences in grading policies led to the increase in student grade scores, not the implementation of the advisory period. A third limitation was the small sample size. Only 19 students were in the matched cohort, and while the results were statistically significant, a much larger sample size may not have the same results. Additional research should be done in this area. Some may be needed regarding the best practices of advisory periods in the middle grades, so teachers assigned to this role are adequately prepared to meet the unique needs of their students. The extra supports provided to students in the study occurred during the first year of junior high to attempt to contradict the usual academic decline of the middle grades. While successful, the author would like to research strategies that could be implemented in the self-contained classroom that would begin to prepare students to face the transition to junior high. In essence, with more research, the focus school could become more proactive in getting their students ready for junior high. I would like to know if there's more that can be done before the students enter, rather than relying on the advisory program. In conclusion, the results of this research study favored the hypothesis and provided evidence that the implementation of an advisory period for students moving from a self-contained 6th grade classroom to a full junior high schedule can positively influence both the academic achievement and emotional transition of students in the middle grades. The positive feedback from the students and parents reinforced the author's belief that strong mentoring relationships are vital to student success and can't be underestimated. I learned that a major key to learning is relationships. I believe Rick Wormelli said it best when he explained that students want to know that someone is looking out for them. Thank you.